A lot has been said about the potential effects of a shortened NFL offseason or preseason, however you want to describe it. And 99.9% of the time this is brought up, especially with the Cleveland Browns. It's why this will hurt the Browns, why this is going to be bad for the Browns, why this is inevitably going to be one of the things that put the Browns behind the eight ball. And yes, while that does make some sense when you consider the Browns do have a new head coach, and yes, on the surface it does make sense. The Browns have a new head coach, they have some new players, they have a bunch of pieces that they're trying to fit in, and they'll have less time to work those pieces in. So it is logical to think that would affect the Browns negatively. But I think you're actually doing yourself a disservice when you only cover this unique situation in that specific way. If you're only looking at the negatives of it and don't attempt to look at the other side of the coin when it comes to this unique situation and how it's going to affect the potential 2021 season. So what I'm going to do here today is try to offer that different perspective that I quite frankly have not heard anywhere else. I'm going to tell you why the potential shortened preseason that's going to happen this year will actually benefit the Browns. Now, again, this isn't a exhaustive list. This isn't going to speak for every single reason why the quarantine might be good or bad for certain players in certain situations. I just think there are some benefits to the quarantine that people aren't talking about when it comes to the Browns that I think do deserve to have a little bit of a spotlight put on them. First one being, lest we forget that the Browns' two starting wide receivers, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, had surgery, major surgery. Odell had sports core surgery and Jarvis had hip surgery. And they were scheduled to come back, I believe, Odell in July, maybe late July, and Jarvis in mid to late August, I believe, is when they were supposed to come back. Now, you would notice that if things were to go on as scheduled and nothing were delayed, then you would be getting Odell for maybe a week or two in training camp, because let's be real, once he comes back, they're going to really try to work him in softly because he'll be fresh off of that rehab to get back in. And then Jarvis having a hip injury, I don't imagine him seeing any contact in the current preseason schedule as it stands now. Which means if there was no delay, you actually run into the same problem you had last year where Baker Mayfield couldn't get enough reps in a new offense with his two best wide receivers. Sure, he'll have Austin Hooper there, and that will make a huge difference, but again, no Odell, no Jarvis available because they have to rehab from these injuries, or they just got off of rehabbing these injuries and you don't want to throw them into physical contact drills as soon as possible. Now, it's very possible that in a regular schedule, one of these players could rush back from their injury just to make it on the camp so they don't have that same injury. But then again, you have the situation where you have a player who's coming off an injury, who is rushing back, reigniting the chance of re-injuring that part that he just got done rehabbing. Now we go into the current situation that we're in today, where I believe, and I'm just speculating here, let me make that clear, that we're probably going to expect at minimum a 2-week to a month delay on everything starting up for the NFL season. It just seems like they need a little bit more time to iron things out and to figure out exactly how they're going to move forward with the players and such in order to have some semblance of a season. And now, something as little as 2 weeks and as big as a month is very significant and helpful to the Browns, because then whenever you start camp, you'll be able to have it with your two best wide receivers available for Baker Mayfield to throw to. And let's not undersell how important that is. Baker Mayfield has not been able to get enough reps with Odell since he's gotten here. So missing more reps would actually be hurtful. If the season got delayed a month or 2 weeks, or they extended camp a month or 2 weeks out to kind of make up for the loss of preseason games and be able to get something together for the start of the season, you actually have more time that you can have the core of that offense all healthy, all together, all able to take reps, instead of doing a patchwork deal, which is what they would have to do if the camp started as scheduled in July/August. And the fact that this hasn't been covered when this was something that was covered a lot before all of this started happening, where people were worrying about Jarvis and Odell's ability to make camp, it kind of surprises me, because this situation actually gives them the opportunity to be fully healthy, not have to rush their rehab, and not miss any reps off their injury, which I think is significantly important, seeing how there was a lack of chemistry between Baker Mayfield and specifically Odell Beckham Jr. last year. Now, I hear you already. How in the world are the Browns, when they're the only team in the AFC North that has a new head coach, a new defensive coordinator, all the new stuff, how are they the best suited to have a shortened preseason? How is that possible, Quincy? Well, let me explain. Baltimore right now is in the process of expanding and complicating their offense because they want to get wide receivers involved a lot more than they did last year. They want to get the ball to Hollywood Brown. They want to get the ball to Miles Boykin. They want to get their wide receivers involved. They put an investment there in the draft. They want to expand this offense. And now, in a situation like this where your practice time is limited, the simpler offense is usually going to win. The team that's simplifying things is usually going to have an advantage. And that's what the Browns are doing. They're simplifying. The Baltimore Ravens, on the other hand, are adding. They're making it more complex, and they need to, because they have the MVP from last year on the team. A lot of people are going to be focused in on what they did at last year, and they need to expand in order to operate because there's more of a book on what they did. The Browns don't have that same problem. They're not running last year's offense. Nobody really knows what the Browns are going to do. So if they keep it simple and run the ball a million times, they could actually get away with that a lot easier at the beginning of the season than Baltimore could by trying to add more complex wrinkles. Sure, they can always fall back and run what they did last year, but what they did last year will be less effective because there's more of a sound ideal on how to stop what they did last year, and that's why they're investing so much in the wide receivers and expanding that part of their offense. I don't expect that to change when it comes to camp, so I don't think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be as well prepared in order to start this season with a shortened preseason as the Browns are. Then we look at the Cincinnati Bengals, who have a rookie quarterback. They have a rookie wide receiver in T. Higgins, and they have a rookie left tackle in Jonah Williams. All of those things might be in effect because it's a lot of rookies that you're leaning on for your production. And then they're running Zach Taylor's offense, which isn't necessarily the most simple offense. And then you have to consider some of the handicaps that the Bengals have as an organization when it comes to dealing with this, and that is specifically they don't necessarily have the same facility levels in order to get some of these reps in that other teams do. Other teams have indoor practice facilities that they can lock down and put in a bubble. The Bengals don't have that luxury. They don't have an indoor practice facility that's their own, that they can lock down themselves. They share one with the University of Cincinnati. And also their practice facility that they use is kind of just in public property underneath a highway overpass. So it's almost impossible to lock that down and bubble that up. If need be, they would have to find a very interesting solution if the NFL required them to bubble up. The Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, they are perfectly set to do this however they need to. The Bengals don't have the facilities for that quite yet. And then we look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it surprises me that nobody's questioning whether a 38-year-old Big Ben is going to be able to play well. Now, I get that you think he could be better than Mason Rudolph and Duck, but I don't know how much better than those guys he's going to be this year. I mean, you have to just look at the age and then look at the draft class he was in. He was in the 2004 draft class. He is the most injury-prone quarterback taken in that first round. He's also the quarterback in that first round that's taken the most hits, been the most injured, and also has the worst physical training habits of all of those players. And if you look at those players, and I'm talking about Eli Manning, who I believe is retired now, and Phillip Rivers, who looked like he fell off a cliff last year, I just don't get why people assume that Big Ben, who was taken in that same draft class where everybody else is falling off a cliff, is not going to fall off a cliff. I don't get why people don't think that. And then if you look at his numbers from last season, what little he played, he certainly looked like he fell off a cliff. So yeah, I get that people don't necessarily expect this to be prime Big Ben, but I don't think people are prepared for the level of Big Ben that they're probably going to get this year, which is something below Phillip Rivers at this point. And then if you look at the fact that he's coming off an elbow tendon injury, returning to an offense that he's not as familiar with, these wide receivers are all new to him. He only really knows Switzer and Juju. And then the running back situation, it just isn't as good to support him as when they had Le'Veon Bell. Also, they lost some offensive linemen, and I get that they have a very good defense, but the defense also lost some key pieces in free agency this year. So it's not the same defense. It's not really that much better of an offense. And their 38-year-old quarterback, who doesn't really keep himself in shape to begin with, has been quarantined the entire offseason. I don't think this is going to go well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they're a team that should get the benefit of the doubt when you look at their situation closely. And I definitely don't think they're better suited than the Browns to come out of this thing right. So when you put all that together, the Bengals and their lack of facilities, the Ravens and their need to expand and complicate their offense in order to continue the success that they had last year in a shortened time, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers in the situation that they're actually in, not the one that people believe they're in because of the brand name, then you start to realize that the Browns, who are basically coming in saying, we're just going to run the ball with two tight ends all the time, and that's the offense, boom, they're probably in the best place because they have the most simple plan compared to everybody else in their division. So I actually think the shortened offseason does actually benefit the Browns a little bit more than people give it credit for. Another thing that I think is going to be good for the Browns is that obviously you're not going to be putting the engine of this offense, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, in harm's way as much and as early. You know, I think regardless of what happens, contact is probably going to be limited throughout camp. You're not going to have as many tackling drills because they're not going to want to have a ton of contact during this whole situation. So you're going to be able to keep them safe. Another thing that I don't think people have considered, because every time someone talks about the Browns having a new offense, they say, how can they learn the new offense? They're under such a handicap. It's just not going to be fair for the Browns. Well, they've actually had more time to learn the offense. The NFL, due to this whole situation, has extended the amount of time people can have access to their playbooks. The NFL has actually extended the amount of time that players can have access to their playbooks, which means players who want to learn their plays can easily learn their plays. And I think they have enough time to learn the plays. Now, I get that there is some value to getting up there and physically lining up and seeing where everybody is in there. And that's learning how to get it. And I get that it can help. But I also think that if you have to get off book with the playbook, you're going to get off book with the playbook. It doesn't matter if you have those aides around to help you. And with more time, I think they'll be able to catch up in that way. And also, this leads into my final point, which is mini camps, OTAs, and all this stuff that happens in May and June that they lost out on because of the current situation is seriously overrated. I think every year we have a lack of stuff to talk about, and mini camps and OTAs are what's available, so we make a big deal out of that, but I don't think it ends up really mattering. Mini camps and OTAs matter to coaches more than they matter to players. Because coaches just put more value in it. I don't even think they get a ton out of it. I just think they put a lot of value in it because it's just a coach thing to do. Honestly, I think the part of an NFL team that gets the most value out of the OTAs is the PR/game day entertainment team that's going to be recording all of these videotrons and getting all the promo pictures and, you know, getting everything ready for season ticket packets and all that stuff and programs. But for the players and teams and how good they're going to be when it comes to the fall, completely non-essential. And I think this is the biggest part of the offseason that the NFL is going to miss, is this part. Training camp in some form will probably happen. It has to happen. The preseason in some form will probably happen. It has to happen. It's really just the things that we've already missed out on, like mini camps and OTAs, that won't, but I don't really think they have that much of a value in the first place. So that's why I personally don't put a lot of stock into these narratives that the current situation in the shortened preseason is going to slow down specifically the Cleveland Browns because they have a new head coach and all this stuff. That's why I don't necessarily buy into it, and I think there's more to that conversation than just what is stated on the surface if you look into it deeper. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know. And again, guys, thank you guys for watching. And again, guys, don't forget to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified. And again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.